Wall Street veteran Bernard Madoff has been arrested and charged with running a $50 billion Ponzi scheme.
Congress wants to know what caused the Enron meltdown.
Now, while the collective rage currently is focused on WorldCom,
Tyco CEO Dennis Kozlowski was convicted of looting hundreds of millions of dollars.
This is one of the biggest fraud cases ever.
Their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Find out more on this week's episode of White Collars, Red Hands.
Germany. We've visited the beer-drinking, lederhosen-clad country a couple of times before when we recounted the scandals committed by Wirecard and Volkswagen. Although it is far from the worst thing associated with the Germans, there is no denying that there is a marked history of financial scandal in the country. Today, we discuss the biggest accounting fraud in the entire history of post-war Germany. A little scheme concocted by one Manfred Schmider, I can't say it, whatever, whose charisma was only rivaled by his incredible ineptitude. Join us today for a hard-to-track-down story of greed, political corruption, trickery, and potential kidnappings as we discuss the almost completely fictitious utility machine manufacturing business, FlowTex, and the Sheik of Karlsruhe.
FlowTex sounds like a menstrual cup.
Yes. It probably is, honestly, because it's like Playtex.
Yeah.
But FlowTex.
Yeah, that sounds like it's meant to catch my period blood.
Yeah, like
that sounds like it is designed to hold my uterine lining. That sounds like it is meant to hold my children who are not conceived.
Yeah, let's see how many of these we can get.
Sounds like it is supposed to sunny side up those eggs that were not fertilized.
All right, too far. I should have stopped you after 3. You're right.
Well, good, because I was like, I don't know how
shouldn't
much
have let you go for that. Shouldn't have let you go for that 4th one. But here we are. So yeah, we're going to be talking about another German story today. It seems like the biggest. There's like three big countries when it comes to financial scandal. Obviously, America and Italy and Germany. Those are like the 3 biggest countries that we cover, at least so far.
Yeah, that we cover. They're all up to no good.
I'm sure there's more. I just think that it's like this is where capitalism is like the strongest, and mostly the reason we talk about Italy is because the Vatican. Spoilers. Maybe maybe more coming up on that. We know you guys love when we talk about the Vatican scandals.
Yes.
And there might be some more coming up in
We love
soon.
the Pope. We love the Pope. We love the Pope.
We love making fun of the Pope. We've done it a bunch. The research for this episode today was insane. There was one article I found that was in English. So everything else, all of the research I did today was in poorly auto-translated English from German articles.
I'm going to tell you what. If I would have gotten this episode, it wouldn't have happened.
It was.
I would not have done it.
It was.
I'd have been like, no.
There was one 26-minute documentary that was in English, which was great and a very awesome asset. But yeah, most everything else in this was scrounged up from German articles. So thank you, German Wikipedia, and many other German websites that I visited.
Wikipedia,
as in its traditional pronunciation. Thank you.
Yes, Wikipedia.
So let's just get down to it. Huh?
Let's get down to business.
To defeat the Germans.
FlowTex.
Okay. So this whole story starts with a young German boy named Manfred Schmider, who was born in Karlsruhe. Where is that? I don't know. I didn't want to spend the time, nor did I have the desire to look up German geography for this episode.
Well, it's in Germany. We know that.
So it is in Germany. And I even say some states and stuff later I'm assuming I will say them very poorly, but we'll get to that later. So he was born in 1949.
Oh, good. He just missed it all.
Barely. Manfred would grow up to gain monikers such as the Sheik of Karlsruhe, which might be problematic. I don't know, but he got the nickname in the 90s.
In the 90s.
So we're just bringing it up now. And Big Manny, because of his portly figure and his ability to command a company and a room. He was supposedly an imposing person. I think he's kind of tall too, but he's He kind of looks like German John Goodman, actually.
Hot.
He got some weird stuff.
Sexiest man.
You heard it. Time this year is going to come out. It's John Goodman already.
John Goodman.
You run to...
Isn't he dead?
No, John Goodman's not dead.
Who's the dead guy?
A lot of people, but not John Goodman.
The fat guy.
A lot of people, but not John Goodman.
The funny one.
A lot of people, but not John Goodman.
Uncle Buck.
That's John Candy.
That's what I was
And
thinking.
he died like 25 years ago.
I know, I couldn't
dude.
remember his name. And who's the other one who was on SNL?
Jim Belushi? You mean Chris Farley?
Yes.
Okay.
He overdosed.
But the fact that there was already two of them is pretty
They were all fat and
pretty
funny.
bad. A lot of people, man. A lot of fat funny guys die early. Unfortunately, it's
because they're
but a not so funny fat person.
Manfred
Schmider. As a boy, he showed his prowess for gaining money and being evil when he started selling life insurance policies after school at the young age of 16.
You know, he's just like Barry.
Barry?
Yeah, Z Best.
Oh, you can't just say Barry. There's so many.
remember his last
Minkow.
name.
There's so many
Minkow.
Barrys. You can't just. We're not on a first name basis with Barry Minkow. Okay.
I could only think I knew it started with an M, and I was like Barry Manilow, and I was like, it's not Barry Manilow.
Definitely not.
They're such different people.
At least not yet. But Manfred Schmider, in his young adult life, however, he would move on to an arguably more evil business of selling used cars, eventually owning his own used car and scrap business. The first, let's say, interesting event that happened to Manfred Schmider, by his own account, Schmider was kidnapped in the mid-1980s by two men who then stole millions of dollars worth of valuables from his home before releasing him.
How do you steal a man this large? How do you kidnap a man this large?
I got two of them. I don't know. You put like a ham sandwich in the back of a van and just kind of like wait. He's like, oh, geez, oh my God, what is that?
What is that?
Is that a...
Like Augustus Gloop?
Oh, is that a ham sandwich? And then he takes a bite and you just like pull a string and then a boxer goes over him.
That's a bratwurst.
Oh, Jesus, that sauerkraut, I'm sweating from all of my pits and areas. Oh, geez, get that into my mouth. And then they just kind of stole everything from his house.
I do like sauerkraut, though. I don't blame him.
Oh, my God. Sauerkraut's good. We're not denying it.
Sauerkraut.
So this crime remains unsolved, but was actually featured on a TV show at the time called, let's do this, Aktenzeichen XY. A show that aimed to solve real-world unsolved crimes. And this crime was featured on an episode of this in the 1980s.
It's like Cold Case.
Also, this show ran from like the 1960s to like 2003 or something.
Holy shit.
So this was a popular TV show, I guess.
It's like the Twilight Zone.
I don't know. So,
That had a lot of seasons.
see, the only interesting thing about this whole ordeal, though, is that Manfred got $2 million from his insurance company as a payout for the goods stolen, and the incident could have been a plot for insurance fraud because 10 years after the crime, actually, two perpetrators came forward claiming to have committed the crime in conjunction with Schmider, specifically to commit insurance fraud. But when they questioned him, they had like their stories didn't match up, so they never actually filed any charges.
So when he got kidnapped, he did not come back? Or he did come back?
No, he did come back. This is before everything we talk about. Oh. So this is kind of the first interesting event where you're like, were you committing insurance fraud? Is this a little suspect?
It's sus.
It is sus. But shortly after this incident, Manfred would happen upon the technology that would shoot him into the upper echelon of luxurious living. In 1986, Schmider discovered and licensed an American technology developed by a company called FlowMole. This is the American version of FlowTex. FlowMole, a much worse name, in my opinion. In a weird turn from the car business, this technology was for constructing horizontal drilling machines to lay utility pipes underground without digging up the surface. You basically snake a drill through a small hole in like the ground that extends, boring a channel to run electrical wiring without a need to dig a trench or to like rip up concrete. You just like cut one small hole and it kind of like bores and you can track where it is and then like bring it up or whatever. To put it in Nina terms, it looks like a big fuck machine. Like, you know what? I know you know what those look like. So it's
I've never watched porn. I don't know.
Oh, So it's like raised and it's got like a thing that comes out of it and goes into the ground and drills, but like really big.
So for like a giant.
Yes.
So like for Jack and the Beanstalk. Hot. Oh, could you imagine? Oh.
I just knew that you already wanted to make a joke about all the pipe laying that I just talked about and things like that. So I just figured I'd jump ahead of it.
Lay that pipe.
And make the dirty joke for you.
Yeah, he really piped her hard. I don't think that's a phrase. Does it blow the ground's back out?
Yes.
That machine?
Yeah. And it shoots like, it bores it with liquid too. So it like pumps this hydraulic fluid in and it spins and shoots liquid out of the front as it goes. That's how it works.
Truffle butter.
It's like,
because it's mud, it looks like truffle butter.
I'm gonna leave that one alone. If you don't know what that is, do not Google it. Okay.
Nicki Minaj has a wonderful song called Truffle Butter.
That's
Look it up.
Fucking disgusting. So in 1994, Manfred Schmider then created the company FlowTex that would purchase and lease these machines to contracting companies that would use them. Like with many accounting scandals, this started out as a legitimate business idea. Schmider and his partners saw value in this technology and started to produce the machines and convinced some banks to give them the original capital to get the machines in the first place. But we all know where this is going, and soon FlowTex would become an empire of lies. Schmider immediately starts gaining capital from banks to buy more machines. And he proves that there is an incredible demand for the technology. As by 2000, FlowTex claims to have sold more than 3,000 machines at a whopping 1.5 million Deutsche Marks per machine.
Oh yeah, they wouldn't have switched over to the euro at this point.
Yeah, I quote some later stuff in euros, but most of this is in Deutsche Marks. And
Why did they? I don't know if you know this. I don't remember when they switched over to euros. Launched in January of 2002, and that's when they took the changeover.
So most of this happened in marks at the time. I think I used Deutsche Marks most of this time, but if I say marks, it's the same thing.
Deutschland.
So this caused Manfred Schmider to become an incredibly wealthy man. And he found increasingly crazy ways to show off his wealth. Okay. So first of all, right, you need a big house.
Hell
okay.
Yeah.
So he got that plus some. He owned a 60,000 square meter estate in a beautiful area of Germany that is supposedly very, only elite people live there. But, I mean, you can't just have one house when you're rich, right, Nina?
No. I mean, as a rich person myself.
With your multiple estates.
Here's the thing. Why rent a hotel when you could just buy a house, you know?
Of course. I mean,
you know.
Nina, she's got little townhouses all over Chicago, under the bridge on Monroe
honestly,
Street, under the bridge on Michigan Avenue.
I've got, absolutely.
At the heart of Chicago, the pay-by-the-hour motel that's just a little bit north.
Well, I just work there, but.
Oh, sorry, just an employee. I don't know. I just work here. So Manfred Schmider, like you, also had a lot of other places that he could visit that he owned. He owned villas in Cannes, Miami. Oh, it's not Cannes. I knew it. It's Cannes. I looked it up. It's Cannes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was so worried about mispronouncing it that I looked up how to pronounce it on Google, and then I still mispronounced it.
Interesting, because my ex, they pronounced it con.
I don't know. That's what the Google machine told me. So
well, Google also told me how to pronounce Latka incorrectly, so I don't trust their little translate.
Might be wrong. But he also added in Miami, Ibiza, and St. Moritz. St. Moritz is in... predictably from his car sales days, Schmider had a taste for expensive cars and had an entire fleet of them. But that isn't where his obsession with expensive travel toys stops. He also owned a $20 million 55-foot yacht, which he bought from the Prince of Brunei.
Do you know where that is?
It was in like, it started with an S. I don't remember. It was like an island nation. in what is close to the Middle East. Because he was also known not as a prince, but also as a sultan. So,
Yeah, he's right by Southeast Asia.
yeah.
Brunei is.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it. Because I'm a dumb girl.
But that yacht was only one of his 3 yachts. He owned 3 yachts. He also had 2 private jets, one of which had solid gold tap handles in it, and a helicopter. The craziest of all of his assets, though, was an entire airfield, which he was awarded the contract to acquire in 1995, which used to be a Canadian Air Force base.
Why did he need that?
So he could have a place to put his jets and helicopter. And he also was going to turn it into a commercial international airport. But mainly, this is where he wanted to build a huge headquarter for FlowTex, which there were concept designs and videos that showed this like ridiculously crafted like glass dome with like 2 other glass structures, like all glass building. It was like this futuristic architectural thing, which probably wouldn't have happened anyway because it looked like it wouldn't actually work. And this was all, I just want you to remember, this was all for a company that made fucking drilling machines. So I don't know how anyone looked at this and was like, yeah. How does a company...
people need their drills.
How does a company that only sells utility company drilling machines have enough money to buy a fucking airport and make a whole headquarters? It's not Google. They don't make like 5 million products or whatever. You know? Like, how did anyone look at this and be like, seems legit?
Well, remember those like little bands that were popular and you took them off and they were an animal?
SillyBandz?
Yeah,
spelled with a Z?
People got rich off of those. So it's not totally out of the realm.
They didn't get this rich. They weren't building
That's true.
They weren't building a SillyBandz headquarter in like the United States Capitol next to the Capitol building.
It's true.
All right?
That is true.
This is different.
Damn, SillyBandz. That's a blast from the past.
Jesus.
Dude, I miss SillyBandz. I want a SillyBand.
I'll get you some for your birthday.
Can you still order them?
I'm sure. Oh no. I just going to Amazon
I feel
right
like
now.
I feel like Joe Rogan podcast right now because the one time the 30 minutes I listened to an episode, so I would actually have an opinion on it. Because I was always like, nah, fuck Joe Rogan, this is stupid. And then I was like, well, you've never listened to it. Maybe you should listen to it.
It's way too long. That's one thing I can say. I started. I'm
Yeah,
like, this is
3
like 2 hours or whatever.
Yeah, it was like a
No.
3-hour long episode. I only made it 30 minutes, but they had a guy who was like, they're like, hey, look that up, and then he would look it up, and that's how I feel right now. SillyBandz.
Hey John, can you pull up the SillyBandz video? Have you
they
seen
still
this
have
shit?
them.
Of course they do. Schmider's obsession with luxury didn't just stop at collecting expensive objects. It also extended to keeping expensive people. Now, what do you think? Let me finish. In the form of politicians.
And escorts.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Come on. You don't have that much money and you're not buying an escort. I don't believe it.
Especially if you look
like that.
Like he had a wife and some kids, but I don't think she's hopping up on there anymore.
She can't find it.
Gross.
Get down on it.
Dug it in.
I can't because I can't find it.
Dug it in. Manfred Schmider remained incredibly connected in the political sphere of the German state where he lived and operated out of, Baden Wurttemberg. Got it. Schmider made many donations to multiple prominent political parties and had one prime minister publicly call FlowTex the gem of their economy. And another prime minister gave the keynote address at Schmider's 50th birthday party that he threw at his mansion. The prime minister was also there at the groundbreaking for the airfield and HQ that Schmider was building. He won these favors through his political donations, but also through an incredible ability to schmooze. He would invite politicians and possible lenders out to lavish parties on his estate, on his yachts, jets, or helicopter. It was said that he purposely kept meetings with possible creditors short and would transport them around town in his helicopter or to a quote-unquote liquid lunch.
It's because he was on a diet.
Where he would treat bank officials to copious amounts of alcohol while discussing business. Probably not the best state of mind to decide the fate of literal billions of dollars.
I don't know. Every time I make an important decision, I make sure I get drunk first.
Well, I mean, I feel like this is actually much more common in business than people like to talk about?
Oh, absolutely.
Is you just get together and get fucking sauce.
Oh, they get turned. Business people.
And you're like, yeah, let's do the fucking merger, man. But you've had like 17 shots.
Who was that guy that you talked about on a small claims court that got drunk and like tanked the economy because of all the bad deals?
Oh, we talked about that. Oh no, that was on the Mistake Menagerie episode where the guy, he was an oil futures trader and then he was like blackout drunk and then caused the price of oil to rise by over $1 a barrel in the global market, which was like millions upon millions of dollars in volume. Yeah. He traded like 70% of the oil volume in one night. It's crazy. They do this probably too often, and Manfred Schmider was known for these liquid lunches. With Schmider's ability to grease the wheels with charisma and demonstrations of his supposed vast wealth, he was able to grow FlowTex to insane heights. The only problem is that of the 3,000 machines that FlowTex claims to have sold, less than 200 of them were real.
They didn't even exist?
They had 185 machines.
Bro.
But they had sold 3,000. And they had actually sold them because they sold them to the banks. So let's get down into the accounting scandal that happened at FlowTex. We knew, obviously, where this was going. This entire empire built on nothing but lies. Early on in the process, the machines that FlowTex were selling producing underwhelming results. It turns out that this type of drilling most of the time wasn't feasible because rocks and other existing utility lines got in the way. So it didn't even actually work very well. They do still utilize this today, but it's gotten a lot better. And at the time, it really didn't work. No one was using it. No one wanted these machines. Although the company only truly had around 185 machines, while they had paperwork saying that they had almost 3,000. Now, how this would work is that Schmider set up shell corporations that he secretly controlled, including one called KSK, which was the company in charge of purchasing the machines from the manufacturer. So KSK would purchase the machines from the manufacturer out of Spain, who would build the machines.
Okay.
They would then sell them to banks.
Okay.
And then transfer the machines to FlowTex that would then pay leasing fees. They would pay a lease on it to the banks because the banks technically own the machines. So FlowTex didn't have the capital to buy all of the machines. So the banks would buy the machines and then lease them out to FlowTex. And then FlowTex would either use them themselves, or more often they would give them to, what are they called? Oh, they called them system companies, like other companies that, like construction companies that would then use them, pay money to FlowTex, and then FlowTex would pay money to the banks who actually owned the machines.
Interesting.
Supposedly. Schmider, however, covertly operated KSK. So he was controlling KSK, but he put like dummies as CEOs and like people who led it, but he was actually making the decisions for KSK. And he also made up most of the systems companies that they were supposedly leasing the machines to use. So it was all fake. They were generating fake machines that KSK would then sell to the banks, but the banks, they don't have to ship them the machines, and then they don't ship the machines to FlowTex. They just say, hey, we got these machines, we're giving them to FlowTex, buy them from us, and then they'll pay you the lease payments. So they technically don't have to see every single machine. And the supposed manufacturer that KSK bought the machines from in Spain wasn't even real. It was a fake company they set up in Spain that had no employees and no actual headquarters. So they only bought like the original 185 and never bought any more.
What the fuck?
So they faked buying all of these. And they were simply selling the same machines to the banks over and over again. The only thing that the bank required, like I said, was a document showing a transfer of the machine from KSK to FlowTex to pay for the machine. Then FlowTex would be paying the leases on the machines to the banks with the money acquired from them in the first place. So they'd pay KSK for the machines. KSK would secretly send the money to FlowTex and to the system corporations that they would then use the money from the banks to pay the leases to the banks for fake machines. So basically, the banks are paying their own lease payments on the
That is insanity.
on the machines that don't even exist that they own technically.
That is all insanity.
They also falsified all the documents to go along with this, funneling money to the fake system corporations to make it seem as if they were paying FlowTex to generate a fake profit. So they're also rigging the profits for FlowTex, which in turn gets them more investments from more banks. That in conjunction with his ability to take them out and get them really fucking drunk and then show them all show them all these fake numbers and then get them to give them more money to buy more fake machines.
Yeah, and then it's like no questions asked.
Yeah. But in reality, no one was really using these things. So the banks and their auditor would stop by to inspect the machines that they bought. So what FlowTex would do is that they kept like some new machines that they never shipped anywhere just in their warehouse. Mm-hmm. They were always the same machines. Mm-hmm. And when the banks or the auditor would come by, they just swapped the plates and the identification number. And then they'd make sure that it matched their paperwork upstairs of the ones that they supposedly manufactured and supposedly bought. They just swapped the plates and they'd come by and they'd compare the document to the plates. They'd be like, yep, these are the ones. And then when they'd come again,
it was just the same machine.
They're like the same, like 5 machines that they would just swap the license plates out on.
I mean, that's pretty smart. That's pretty smart.
And the funniest thing that they would do is that they actually would go around and parade these machines in use at construction sites to investors. And they would show them, look at all these machines we'd have. They take them to one site. They take them to another site. They take them to another site. They'd show them these machines at every single site. It was the same machine that they'd move in between. Like during lunch breaks, they'd go to one site, show it to them. They'd break for lunch. They'd have some guys come out and move it to the next site and say it's a completely different machine at the next place.
You know, we talk about these stories and it's like, you can't even believe that this is happening.
This one's funny because it's kind of, they even describe it in a lot of the articles I read as like, it's kind of naive and like juvenile. Like it's kind of a stupid scheme.
It's funny.
It's just, this is like something that the stupid evil villain in like a cartoon show would come up with. Like they like come out and they're just like,
very childish. It's like, oh, we'll get them.
They're just like moving the things and swapping out the plates and being like, man, see, they're new machines.
And then people believed it.
It's stupid.
It is stupid.
Now, of course, even stupider, this whole thing, it boiled down to kind of being run like one big Ponzi scheme where they used funds from new investments from banks to pay off the leasing fees on the old investments from the banks. Because here's the thing, like they're still paying all of the leasing fees on all these machines that they fake bought. So it got to the point where the leasing fees were like 60 million marks a month. So you have to pull in at least 60 million in new investments just to pay off the previous investments.
Yeah.
So obviously that kind of pace is not sustainable. And that is why in February 2000, Schmider and many of his associates were arrested on suspicion of fraud and tax evasion. And they were kept in prison because they were seen as flight risks. And the FlowTex scandal had finally come to a halt.
Wah, wah, wah.
So in the end, this whole cockamamie, I think that's a very appropriate term here, cockamamie scheme, defrauded corporate investors out of almost 4.3 billion Deutsche Marks. It's billion with a B, or around 2.2 billion euros at the time, which I think adjusted for inflation is almost 3 billion euros today. Which makes it the largest economic fraud in Germany in the post-war era by sheer volume. Schmider was convicted on numerous counts of money laundering and fraud and sentenced from anywhere between 6 to 12 years in prison. They have minimum sentences, I guess, in Germany for a lot of charges. So minimum 6, maximum 12, which funnily enough was overturned due to a possible judge bias. And then reevaluated. And guess what? I mean, I know you're looking at the outline, but guess what he was resentenced for after they looked at it? He was sentenced from 6 to maximum of 12. 11 and a half years. They knocked off 6 months.
They're like, $1 more $1 million and we would have given you 12.
They were like, yeah, the judge might have been biased on this. He might have gave you too much. We're going to give you half a year less. That being said, he did serve the minimum. He was released in 2007 after serving 6 years in prison. Schmider, though, also later admitted to bankruptcy fraud related to hiding assets in expensive paintings and an expensive SUV that his wife had during his bankruptcy proceedings in 2005. But he was given a suspended sentence, so he didn't actually serve time for that because he admitted to it, I guess. They probably just took the paintings in the car, honestly. Yeah. And were like, fine, you admitted to it, just give us the stuff. But whatever. The worst part about this, though, is that from the documentary I saw and from some stuff I found online, Schmider still seems to be living pretty well financially. He's living in a really nice house. He was wearing very nice clothes still. And he doesn't do anything. He doesn't have a job now. So this is probably because he holed away money from the scheme that they couldn't get back from him.
Wow, what a dick.
It was determined that he funneled about 350 million Deutsche Marks to offshore bank accounts in tax haven countries. So I feel like they can't get that money back.
No, you can't. If it's in Switzerland or something, you can't get it back.
So he's still living fine. He scammed people for about 5 years and he gets to live rich and lavishly. Not as lavishly. I mean, he doesn't have jets and a helicopter or whatever anymore. But
still, though, that's so annoying.
But he gets to live off of this scam for the rest of his life.
Fucking douchebag.
Exactly. Now, the auditor of FlowTex was one of the big four. Not Ernst & Young this time, believe it or not. Although that is another member of the big four. This is KPMG. And during the financial scandal, they submitted multiple unqualified audits of the company's finances. And they did agree to a settlement later. I didn't put the amount in here. I think it was 108 million marks or something. While, of course, not admitting any wrongdoing on their part, because that's how the auditors always do. They're like, we didn't know. We'll pay the fine, but we didn't know. And I don't know. Obviously, they were really good, actually, at cooking their books to make them look legitimate. Mm-hmm. Because also, right before they got arrested, they had plans to release a bond issuance for 6.5 billion marks or something, some crazy amount that they were about to get a big inflow of capital from. Oh, wow. Which would have kept the Ponzi scheme going for way
a long
longer.
Time.
But luckily, they were tipped off by Spanish tax evasion companies about the shell company not being real or whatever. That being said, they were tipped off first 4 years before the arrest. In 1996, someone submitted a serious inquiry about them and something being wrong with their finances. But the government kind of dragged their feet into looking into the fraud. And they think that this is because so many politicians had endorsed FlowTex as being such a good company that they just didn't want to, drag their name through the mud because they were going with it. Yeah. Kind of thing. Yeah. So much so that they actually, a suit was brought against the German government over them not reacting quick enough to this.
Oh, wow.
But it was dropped.
Of course it was.
So that didn't actually come to fruition, but I mean, probably.
Yeah.
So, although information in English about this subject is incredibly hard to find, this story has been sensationalized in many forms of media in German from a 2019 television film entitled Big Manny up to, and I shit you not, this is real, a 2011 musical called Big Money.
They'll make a musical out of anything these days.
They really will. I didn't look up any of the music for it. I don't even know if you can find it. Not interested. They did talk about there's a scene, I guess, where there's this culmination where they're going to set off fireworks for a headquarter reveal. And instead of the fireworks, it's police cars. That was it. That was the only thing that was about it on the German Wikipedia page that I read.
I could go my whole life without watching that one. I'd be all right.
I think so too. I also don't think it's going to be touring in Chicago anytime soon.
I doubt it. I don't know if we'd have a very big market for that one.
Like I said, no, I honestly think after looking at this is probably one of the most in-depth case studies and like just accumulation of this topic in the English language that's available.
No, I believe it.
Which is really cool that we get to
that we were able to cover it because
we get to be the people that bring this, because this is one of the biggest frauds of all time. It's just we don't talk about it in America that much, and I think that's the difference between Wirecard and Volkswagen. Like I mentioned at the beginning, is that this didn't affect America that much, so we don't talk about it. It was just in Germany, but it's interesting nonetheless. Actually, one of the only other English things I found is I actually stole a textbook. I searched the ISBN on like an online textbook library where you can find textbooks for free, and they had a small section on, it was all about accounting fraud committed in different countries, and there was like a page and a half on this scandal.
Oh, interesting.
It had a flow chart. I was like, this is great.
We love a flow
So
chart.
thanks to that guy, but I'm not
FlowTex chart.
But I'm not spending. If it was like $10 for the book on Amazon, like for the ebook on Amazon, I would have got it. But it was $78.
Oh.
So I was like, well,
no.
This is why education publishers are just ripping off students in America. So
no, especially if it was only one page. Like if there's only one page of stuff.
You could buy a chapter. It was $42 for one chapter.
Get out of here.
And I was like, okay, fuck you. I'm not giving to this. So I'm standing up. I'm standing up for my rights. So although no individual people were affected by this scheme, a fact that Manfred Schmider will happily bring up in any interview, he says it every single time, the effects of this scheme on the economy are unknown in scope. It could be huge. That's a lot of money to just be scammed out of the economy. Schmider's greed and this alone led to the fraud that drained billions of dollars from the German economy into his own pockets to be spent on stupid shit like cars and boats. Manfred is an incredible mix of a child that wants nothing more than to play with toys no matter what he has to do to get them, and a charismatic adult businessman ruthless in his methods. An incredibly dangerous combination. This shows us that although America may be the cruddy jewel in the crown of white-collar crime, Germany sure is a close second. So that's it for today. Thank you guys for listening to this episode. It was an endeavor for me.
It was for you.
So thank you. But I think
you did a good job. With the resources that you had, you did well.
And this is an interesting one, honestly, just because it's so stupid and no one knows about it.
No, you're right.
This isn't the Enrons of lore that we've done.
No.
This is something new and exciting. Obviously, if you're here, you at least find financial crime at least a little bit, at least a little bit interesting, or our content about it at least a little bit interesting. So hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did enjoy today's episode, it would help us out a lot if you would show us. And you can do that for free just by liking this episode on whatever podcatcher you listen to. You can rate it. You can give it a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can leave us a written review on Apple Podcasts. And I know you can follow on any of them.
Yes.
You can also share it on any of your social medias. That's free. And, people share a bunch of stupider shit on Facebook than this episode. So you might as well give it a try.
Absolutely.
And the best thing you can do, suggest it. Mm-hmm. If someone, people listen to podcasts now. The average person listens to something like 4 different podcasts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if someone's looking for a recommendation, just say, hey, why don't you listen to White Collars, Red Hands?
Have you ever heard of White Collars, Red Hands?
And that helps us out. And 100%, you don't got to do anything except for say a sentence. That's not too hard. Now, if you want to open up your pockets and instead want to give us money, which is also, hey, we understand the irony of that, but it is what makes the world go round.
It is, unfortunately.
So if you want to support us that way, hell, you can by buying our merch. Our merch is through TeePublic. You can find the link in the show description, or you can go to our website, whitecollarsredhands.com, click the button up top that says check out our merch. That'll take you straight to the page. We get a kickback from all of that. You can also, for free on your part, but gives us money on our part, go to YouTube on Entertainment Buffet and watch our videos there instead, and we get a little bit of a payout from that.
Yeah, we do.
From the YouTube algorithm as well, the YouTube gods. So you can go ahead and do that. Another free way, though, to support us, just follow our socials, and that's just a click, right? You know, that's twitter.com at whitecollarspod, Facebook.
What? Twitter.com at whitecollarspod?
Yeah.
You're going in a different order.
Yes, I am.
I don't like it.
Facebook.com/whitecollarsredhands. Instagram at whitecollars_redhands. You can also suggest an episode to us. We do a fan suggestion. If you're still skeeved out over this,
I don't like it.
We do a fan submitted episode every single season. So you could be the next one. So you can submit directly to us, either using the contact us section on our website, or just send us an email at whitecollarsredhands@gmail.com. You can send anything to that. I don't know. Say hi. I'm lonely sometimes.
Yeah. We don't have any friends.
You can just say hello.
Because Sean's my only friend.
That's sadder for you, honestly.
Yeah, it is.
Because I'm worse than no friends.
It's true.
Thank you. That confidence boost. And I think
that covers it.
That's all I got. So thank you guys once again so much for listening. Manfred Schmider, the second worst German in history. That's probably not even true.
I don't think that's
Goebbels is up there, right?
Who?
Goebbels, it's Hitler's second in command. It doesn't matter. Thank you
don't
so
know
much
about
for
him.
listening. We'll see you next week on another episode of White Collars, Red Hands.